to our penultimate 2021 book chat. And I'm very pleased to say that we've had 12 book chats. All of them have been so interesting and diverse. I see one of our former art authors, Eleanor, is on the call today. So welcome back, Eleanor. And some familiar faces. Mary, I think you were on one of the first calls, on one of the first book chats we did. So thanks for coming back around. And I see some new faces, which is always great. And Musa, welcome aboard. Glad you could join us. We'll have a chance for Q&A at the end, but because we do this in a half hour, we like to try to jump right in. So let me, you all can see my screen. So I'm just gonna, there we go. So I just wanted to let you know that Assisting Hands Home Care sponsors these events. I'm the director of community relations for them. And my background is in creativity and aging. I spent 35 years helping organizations and individuals realize how important creativity is to the healing practice. It's free medicine. So being creative doesn't require you to have any supplies even. You can do it just with your imagination. And it really does improve your physical and mental well-being. So I joined Assisting Hands 2.5 years ago to help Steve Lorberbaum expand his vision to include creativity. Thus, we have things like book chat and what's your plan and Death Cafe and the Making Memories Together games. So we've really been successful at embracing this healing modality. And I look forward to sharing today's program with all of you. So let's talk about, for a second, our gorgeous guest, Diane Reynolds, Diane Perlmutter Reynolds, and hiding behind her is her mom, and she's going to introduce her as well. And Diane had the esteemed privilege of collecting her father's works after he had passed and putting them together in an adorable little chat book called Glimpses of Happiness. And we're going to share some of those stories. She's going to tell you a little bit about her dad, and then we can ask her some questions. If you have questions while we're talking and you want to put them in chat, I'll pay attention to that, so I can kind of feed them in as we go. All right. So welcome, Diane.
Thank you, and I so appreciate this opportunity. It's very exciting for me to be able to share my father's writings with everybody. I call it my project of passion, which it totally is. And just a little background, my dad was a government employee for many years. He worked for the Department of Agriculture, the Department of State. He was a Phi Beta Kappa, and he received an honor called the Arthur S. Fleming Award, where he was one of the 10 outstanding young men and under 40 in federal service. So he had many, many skills, and but as well as a government employee, he was really an entrepreneur at heart, because he would always be writing. He had a passion for writing. He taught writers and editors at the World Bank. He was the head of communications at the State Department. And he also worked for the National Endowment for the Arts with Nancy Hanks for many years, doing panels. He did logos for the National Zoo in Washington. So he was pretty accomplished. And sadly, in 1992, he had a brain tumor. And it kind of put everything on hold. We really had no margin of error. He was on the table for 24 hours, and we just thought everything was over. But miraculously, he did recover, not to the way he was before, but during that time, he was very depressed. And we had a doctor come in, and they asked, "What do you like to do, Jerry?" His name was Jerry. And he says, "I love to write." And so, long story short, he started not only writing, he wrote over 500 little vignettes, Seinfeld-like vignettes, which he called the Gallery of Glimpses. He had written a book, actually, I forgot to say that earlier. It was published by Random House. I do have a copy here just to show you. It's called A Practical Guide to Effective Writing. And so when he was writing his little glimpses, he thought, oh, I would love to get those published. So he went back to Random House thinking that they would be interested. But years later, the technology had changed and he really, you know, was in a different realm. And what he wrote were in these little tiny books. He had little books like this where he scribbled all his writings. So it was kind of a miraculous thing that my mother, who's sitting right behind me, she's now 96 years old. When she was working with him, she would be typing in these little stories and he would be reading and she would be writing. And we collected over 500 of these. So my passion over the years was trying to figure out how to get something like this published. I was living in California. I lived there for 40 years. When my father got sick, I came back and forth every few months, and it was so heartbreaking to see what was going on. But I just really was so amazed at his recovery and what he was doing. And I always said to myself, you know, if there was any way that I could get anything out there, I was going to do it. So when I moved back here, it was in 2016, I started with a calendar, and this is what the calendar looked like. And I used his title. It was called The Gallery of Glimpses. And my feeling is that his work is really targeted, and the audience would be elders, seniors, people that could relate to these relevant stories that are, you know, as current today as they were when he wrote them. And I started with the calendar. I was talking to different assisted living communities. This one was from Bedford Court. They took it on in 2018. Each page was a glimpse that he wrote. I don't know if this shows up at all on the screen.
Yeah, it's fine.
With an illustration, because I felt that reading about adults being able to use coloring for cognitive therapy, and I read an article that Maria Shriver had written about her father. And I just thought, you know, this way caregivers that were with people, the people in the communities themselves, it would be a great way for them to write in their appointments, be able to color in the glimpse. And I felt that, I still feel very strongly that calendars like this are a very valuable tool. So after the calendar, I decided that I was going to try to find a publisher, which I did. And I'm thrilled that my book has been out, and it was out the end of 2019. And I was sort of on a roll. I was supposed to do a book signing at Barnes & Noble. I was going to do the Kensington Day of the Book Festival. And then we all know what happened in 2020. So, you know, it's just my momentum kind of stalled. But about a month ago, I did a book talk here in Leisure World, which went really well. And thanks to Patricia, I'm so excited just to be able to share my story with you guys. And, you know,
Well,
pardon?
We're happy to have you here.
Thank
and
you.
Happy to hear that, you know, the trajectory is not stalled completely, that you still have some vim and vigor left. I thought it would be fun to give a little bit of a sense of how the book flows. So it's very cleverly divided into sections, like sort of groupings. And one of the sections that I think is really interesting, or one of the glimpses that I thought would be fun to read, because it's very short, gives you a feel for his tempo. So what I noticed about all of the different musings is that he's got a very clipped tempo. It's almost like staccato. And I was looking at, do you want to read page 198?
Sure.
Exit only.
Oh, I love that one. Yes.
And then you all can get a feel for what that's.
First, let me just read really quickly. I wanted to read just in his own words, because I felt that that was really, really important. When he started this, he just said, Glimpses of Happiness is a compendium of life's foibles that play out at home, in the office, at the movies, theaters, arenas, and in streets and highways and byways. Read a glimpse and it will reveal familiar places and the people who live there: doctors, dentists, lawyers, businessmen, family members, babies, friends, adversaries, mentors, and travelers. You will find that the glimpses are occasionally serious, but most are humorous and whimsical. Except this caveat: I do not wish to offend. I have the deep respect for the abiding faith in America's helpers and healers. And I always felt that that was just such a beautiful thing that he wrote in there. And my approach is simple. With each glimpse, I visualize you. You might say, this could happen, and it does. And I hope you do too. Enjoy. So I will read the exit.
Okay.
Exit only. Road mavens try to develop signs to keep traffic moving in the right direction. Arrows also come in their share of display. There are warnings: no left turn, no right turn, no U-turn, do not enter, one way, through way, no way. But perhaps the most genius of these devices is only. It creeps up on you when you at least expect it. And there you are, stuck in the long line of genuine onlys that run the risk of missing the crucial meeting. How do you extract yourself from this dilemma? God only knows. And I think we've all been in those only lanes many, many times.
So another one that I thought would be fun to look at is snowbirds, because a lot of that happens in Leisure World. And that's on 205.
Okay.
You want me to read one?
Sure, I'd love you to.
Okay. Snowbirds. In regions of the country most frigid, many gather to plan the great escape. They waste little time in making their way to the warmest climate. Resorts expect the influx, cautioning staff, take good care of the snowbirds. These special guests receive treatments most special. They are escorted away from drafts. They swim in heated pools. They are wrapped in special blankets to reduce the chill. A snowbird ritual is to keep tabs of back home temperature and to cheer at the news that those who are left behind are freezing their butts off. Snowbirds frequent food-friendly restaurants that recognize their status with generous portions, refills, and discounts. But it all comes to an end when a cold snap causes the thermometer to equal that at home. Fond memories and a foundation to do it again next year, most positively. So were your folks snowbirds? Evelyn, were you a snowbird?
He's asking if you were a snowbird.
No,
No,
never.
you never did that one?
No, never.
No,
He didn't like to go.
he didn't like to go to Florida.
So tell me a little bit about what was your process in terms of editing or connecting with the stories? And then, like I said before, they're in an amazing grouping, from travel to weather to pets. I mean, he's got stuff. There's what, 200 of them in here?
There are 200 in here, and he did over 500. And
Amazing.
he loved media. He loved the theater. He was very social. I mean, he was quite a guy. All I can say is that, and he had such an imagination and would always be talking about different things. I mean, he would treat the president of a company just like he would treat the man that was driving the cab. I mean, he had no, feelings of anybody being more important than anybody else. So, that was one of his real wonderful qualities. And it was a challenge because these were all in the old computer system on the discs. And I was fortunate enough when I was in California, where I met somebody who was able to help me transfer these so that at least I could get them in a format that they were usable. And then I started going through all the topics, and I really wanted to try. I was working with the publisher, and we were really trying to get it where I could organize them and they wouldn't be like all over the place. And I think we did a pretty good job with the contents, and went from arts and entertainment, like you said, to commentaries, to commerce and money, children. And I wanted really, my father grew up in New York. So if anybody's here from New York and knew how to play stickball, but way back when, I mean, some of these New York and Coney Island stories, you know, resonated from him from way back when he was a child. And I always loved the one about stickball. And then he would always laugh about things. I mean, hear the sound of the beep, you know, or he would make fun of somebody on TV and, you know, throwing things at the TV. And then I was saying to myself, if he was alive during this time that we're living in, our political time, he probably would have broken his TV screen a few times. But so it was a process. And I think pardon, go ahead.
What period of time was the last one written?
He died in 2005. I would say about 2003, probably, because at the end, he was really after the brain tumor, they kept some of, you know, just so he could have a quality of life. And in the end, he actually was blind, and he, you know, so many things just totally disintegrated. But he was still writing up until I would probably say around because and some of these little books I found, he had 2003, 2004. So I would probably say 2003 and 4. And but you know,
I have to say that some of them come off as historic, and some of them ride the wave because nothing's changed. And so I'm going to suggest we read Telemarketers, which is really cute. On page 70, it says, telemarketers call at mealtime the best chance they can establish contact. In answering, the respondents must become irritated, and for good cause. Why, they ask, must I answer questions between spoonfuls of shish kebab and dessert? Then come the speeches. Telemarketers must convey the biggest picture that sometimes includes eligibility for vacation travel and frequent flyer points. Catalog purchases are also on the agenda. They promise to send a complete list of merchandise available for bargain purchases. They assure follow-up calls to learn of your decision. Expect to hear from them during mealtime.
Nothing's changed.
Nothing's really changed, right?
Right.
Except now we get it on our cell phones.
Exactly. And I had shared with Patricia, there was a caveat about 2 weeks ago on Stephen Colbert. Trevor Noah was the guest. And if you're familiar with him, I mean, he's one of the known comedians now. And he had a story about what it's like flying. And if you're not prepared with when you get on the plane, and you happen to be stuck in a middle seat, how you get your armrest. And during the pandemic, I mean, it wasn't such a problem because everybody was social distanced and nobody cared and there was an empty seat. But all of a sudden now, when they're packing people in the plane, he was just so funny because his seat was given up. I don't know, he said his seat was broken. They told him to go into the middle seat. And he says, if you're not prepared, you don't know what to do. And if you look at the left, the guy's going to pull down the shade and you grab the armrest and you put your arm down there and you don't move it. On the right, the food cart's going about and then that guy's distracted and you grab the right armrest and you don't move. And he says, I don't move for 16 hours on the plane. And my father wrote one on armrest wars, which if you want, I could just read it.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and read that one?
Okay, auditorium seat designers provide armrests for comfort and convenience. When sitting at close quarters, it may turn out that one of the rests may not be exclusively yours. It is that one that divides the space between you and your neighbor. Many experience the plop down. Neighbor sighs heavily and takes over both armrests. Some pushing aside, leaning elbows. Armrest hogs raise the ire of those who are seated around them. Negotiations among parties do not always work, especially when one is belligerent. Until armrest guidelines are issued, a fair rule is to follow is to allow the ushers to decide by eeny, meeny, miny, mo method, winner takes all. And I was just so taken by that. I happened to just see it that night and I thought, wow, here he wrote about armrest wars way back when, and nothing's changed.
Yeah, that was a good connection.
Right.
And so if you have any questions for Diane or me about this book, I wanted to make sure that you have a chance to ask those. you can unmute yourself and jump in.
The book is really interesting to me because I too am working with material from my parents, actually letters. So I'm so impressed that you were able to get this published and put it into shape. But one thing really interested me in the biography that you offered of your father, and that was that he got the Arthur Fleming Award. Arthur Fleming was our neighbor when I was growing up. His daughter was my best friend. I stood on the street corner waiting for those bus with her every morning. And Arthur Fleming, who was Secretary of Interior, walked from Wesley Heights in Washington, below the cathedral, to his office downtown every single day, walked to and from. So he was really a star in his own right. And to get that award, I think that's really interesting. And I wonder on what that award was, what were the criterion for that award that your father got?
And the people that were
Under 40,
under 40,
civil
and
servants.
had the most potential to go on further.
Yeah, I mean, he was in the government for so many years. He started with agriculture, NEA, agriculture, Department of State, but he was, I remember.
There's so many million workers. So your dad must have had, there must have been something really special about your dad.
I think people that met him or interviewed him for things like this saw that. I mean, absolutely. He was a pretty phenomenal person. We sometimes wonder how he did all these things, and, working with Nancy Hanks on these panels for the National Endowment for the Arts. Peter Max was on one of the panels. They did the National Zoo logo, and then he went out on his own and he opened his own little communications company. But, I think most of his.
What was his academic background? I am sure you said, and I missed it.
Yeah, he got his, he went to GW, and then he got his master's degree at American University, and he was a Phi Beta Kappa. So
in public
government and in business, right? Was his communications and business.
Ah.
Yeah, this was the zoo. I don't know if you can see it, but the logo.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's great.
that his panel. Yeah, the panel designed that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But he got his master's later. I mean, it wasn't right after, because he was in the Navy first, and then he went to GW, and then he went to American and got his master's in American. So.
Any other questions? That was a great question. Thanks, Ellie. I'm
And
curious.
I do have a website. I just want people to know. It's called glimpsesofhappiness.com. And I do, humor is the best medicine. And, my feeling about the book is it just is it's a cute little thing. You can pick it up, you can put it down. It's nothing that you have to read all the time. And, it could be, if people are looking for little gift items, it could be a stocking stuffer. It's just, to me, it's just light, easy, whimsical, and makes people smile. And that's what I like. I think
Absolutely.
that's what we need. We need that these days.
So what's next on your hit parade for getting the book out? So we're going to record this. Actually, we're recording this, and it'll be up on our website in a couple of weeks.
I'll tell you what I really wanted to do, and I was thinking of hospital gift shops, and a lot of them are still closed. So even the one near where I am at Montgomery General, they've been closed for 2 years. That's one area that I'm really thinking of, and I am discussing it with other assisted living communities as an activity, reading aloud, things like that. And I have made some inroads now with the book. I started with the calendar and now with the book. So I am kind of reaching out to some of the assisted living communities in the area to see if they might want to do that. I mean, in the calendar, I had a page of we want your glimpse. So when they had the book, they had the calendar, they could write in whatever they wanted with photographs and things like that. There are some little some of the illustrations are in the book. So if people wanted to do that, you know,
Mhm.
but, and then apparently the Kensington book, the day of the book is supposed to be, if everything goes okay, happening again in the spring. So, you know,
Good.
I feel it's a lot of outreach, and
Mhm.
but I do feel that I know my audience, and I'm really trying to, you know, reach out to this community of people that are caregivers, elder care facilities, things like that, because I think it's a
That's
really
great.
good fit. Where I met you was, you know, through Groves. So
Yep.
great
So anybody who is with a book club or with a sisterhood in a church or a synagogue, this would be a great book to bring to a group and have some group readings and get some chuckles. I'm also thinking like the Rockville Senior Center would be a great spot for it to do a program. And of course, a lot of programs are still on Zoom, but it gets people still interested. And I wish you all the best of luck, Diane. And it's so nice to meet you, Evelyn. I know you had a real sweetheart there with Jerry. Is there any other questions before we close up? Barb, did you want to ask something? I thought I saw a hand go up. No.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it very, very much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you. Yay,
All right.
round of applause.
Okay.
So I'll hang out for a few minutes, and if anybody of your friends you want to say hi to, I won't shut it off completely. I'm just going to stop
I see
recording.
Lorna. Hi, Lorna. She's a California friend.
Yay.